how is it that we here in Northeast Ohio, particularly at Building Hope in the City, how do you get people who are so different, maybe groups of Muslims and Hindus and Christians, how do you get them to work together in the midst of their refugee status? So how do you answer that?
What we usually, I really point to is that we are a faith-based organization, which means that we are Christians, and out of who we are looking for the value of each person being made in the image of God. So I once had one of the Afghani guys come in, and he was of the Shia and Sunni Muslim, and he said, I am of this group, and if I went to a mosque of the other group in Afghanistan, they would kill me.
You know what we're about to do? We're about to get real. We're about to have conversations that Christians have behind closed doors, the scary, raw ones, the ones that make you feel uncomfortable. That's where we're going. Why? Because we're family. Ustedes son mi familia.
So this is the Brian and Janelle podcast. She's Janelle and I'm Brian. And if you don't want to miss anything, all you got to do is just hit subscribe and get that notification whenever we drop a new episode. This is the Brian and Janelle podcast. Joining us live, Eileen Wilson, friend of the program and director of Refugee Ministries at Building Hope in the City. And she was mentioning how a diverse group of officials and delegations from people around the world, throughout Europe and the Middle East and stuff, want to find out, how is it that we here in Northeast Ohio, particularly at Building Hope in the City, how do you get people who are so different, maybe groups of Muslims and Hindus and Christians, how do you get them to work together in the midst of their refugee status? So, Eileen, how do you answer that? You can't say, I don't know.
It just happens, right?
Yeah.
So what we usually, I really point to is that we are a faith-based organization, which means that we are Christians, and out of who we are looking for the value of each person being made in the image of God. So their value is not placed on them by their religion, by their culture, by what society says about them, or even what the world says about them, but that they have individual value. And so we treat people as if they have value, and when you do that, people see value in themselves. They also see value in each other. Mm-hmm. And so at the center, when people come, it's a refuge. It's a place where you're coming because there's so many other problems. You just are coming, you're seeing friends, you're seeing people from your culture, but we keep it in such a way with the volunteers and the staff that people feel comfortable and they feel like it's home. And they don't have the issues, right? Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm thinking through this because this is such a duh thing for a Christian, right? That people have value and we ought to treat them as if they have value because we're all made in the image of God. It's even kind of an American duh thing. Like one of the fundamental principles in America is that we're all created equal. So how do people from around the world respond to that? Like, is it some sort of aha moment, or are they annoyed, or like what? How do they respond to you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you'll have a combination. Many people who come are looking for answers in a system. They're looking for answers in a government. And, we're not government funded, which means that we're not necessarily looking at a system to help move people forward. We're looking at what the role of the church was originally supposed to do, which is to be a neighbor, to be in the community and helping the community moving forward, whoever the community might be. And we talk about that, that's who we are. We are not there to change people. God is working in people. God will work in people's hearts, and people will come to him through what we are doing because we are there, because of who he is. And so we have that conversation, and sometimes they say, yeah, but, this, or yeah, but that.
There's got to be more than just respecting people.
Yes, but I will tell you, it's interesting. Then we talk about the United States, because the United States is one of the few places where the world is here So I once had one of the Afghani guys come in, and he was of they're Shia and Sunni Muslim. And he said, I am of this group, and if I went to a mosque of the other group in Afghanistan, they would kill me. But here, I walked into this mosque, nobody cared. He said, I don't understand how I can do that there, and it's such a problem, but I come here and it's not.
That's a tough question, though, because what he's telling you is true. So how do you respond to that guy?
It's to say to him, the United States is a place where people are coming for refuge. They're coming to leave behind everything that caused them problems. The relationships, the being in a culture where the culture is the overarching force for people. Mm-hmm. Everybody has to be in a culture. Everybody has to be part of that. And so when you come here, you begin to understand that there's more personal freedom. You can start to make choices. With that comes personal responsibility. And it begins to change who you are, begins to change your life. It also opens you to what is the United States about? Who are these people around me? And so it doesn't take long until you see people beginning to mix in cultures, people beginning to have friends from cross cultures. And that's really the beauty of the United States, the beauty of Cleveland, really, is that all the people can live together. They can all, we'll have at any given time, I might have 19 different countries in there. Huh. And it's okay because we're all learning. We're all moving forward. We are all in the same vulnerable space. Mm-hmm. And that's a big key issue right there, is that they're vulnerable and they're ready to move forward. And they're looking to us, to the people in Cleveland working with refugees and immigrants. They're looking to us to say, hey, will you help us move forward?
So now I'm going to tiptoe towards something, because as much as I believe that for Christians it's a duh thing that everyone's made in the image of God and we're to love our neighbor, sometimes I think we as Christians kind of forget it in culture and we compartmentalize it. And then you see it manifest itself in society in some ways. Do you ever have folks from these foreign delegations go, well, yeah, but you guys don't do that. There's like certain groups you don't like.
Oh, yeah. So we'll always end up in a conversation about the immigration system in the United States and what's going on. Why are we, it looks like we are doing this, looks like we're doing this, you're having these problems. And, you talk about how in a free society, everybody's free to have an opinion, and sometimes it's a good opinion and sometimes it's not. So,
yeah.
But,
do they accept
but
that?
Everybody has it. They do, because it's part of a learning experience, and you're coming to understand, this last delegation was about minority rights, but we've had a lot come on religious rights, diversity in immigration, people coming. So there's a lot of looking toward how in countries where it's very homogenous, most of the people from my country have been there for hundreds of years. We're pretty much the same. Now I'm bringing in 100,000 people from another culture who are all pretty much the same. It's much more difficult when you have two very large groups and it's one against the other versus the United States, where it's a lot of small groups. Yeah. And it's easier to find a niche. So, yeah, it's been very interesting. I've learned a lot about what's happening around the world. Mm-hmm. And seeing that this is not just something that the United States, of course, is debating. This is a global issue that's coming right to our doorstep from around the world.
Amen to that. It's about 7:53. Unfortunately, our time has run out. Eileen Wilson is Director of Refugee Ministries at Building Hope in the City. I love this ministry. I love what they're doing with refugees. And perhaps this has tugged on your heartstrings, the idea that there is an opportunity here in Northeast Ohio to truly love your neighbor and truly live out the idea that everyone's made in the image of God. How can folks get involved in your ministry, Eileen, and connect with refugees in our own backyard?
Yes, that would be great if everybody would go to the website, www.buildinghopeinthecity.org. They can sign up there to just take a class or begin the process. And I'd like really quick to do a quick plug for something that's going to be going on in Columbus that we're going to be part of. It's going to be through the Evangelical Immigration Table. It is going to be called the National Immigration Forum, Bibles, Badges, and Business. So it will be faith leaders, law enforcement, and business leaders who are coming together to discuss the value of immigrants in Ohio and to understand immigration best practices, like what's going on, to begin that conversation. Because these three groups, pastors, the police, people who are hiring people, are the beginning look at what and how do we look at immigrants? How do we work with immigrants? What does Ohio think? And so it's going to be a great conversation. Yeah. It's going to be in Columbus. So I just wanted to put a plug in. If anyone's in those groups, we will be having that and looking for people in those groups who want to attend.
What's the date of that in Columbus? Do you remember when it's going to be?
It's July 17th. I'll be on one of the panels there. It's from 12 to 5 p.m. at the Vineyard Church.
That sounds fascinating, and I love the immigration table, too. That's a wonderful organization that talks about these issues. So, and Columbus isn't that far. Goodness sakes. We could definitely go to that. So thanks so much for your information on that, Eileen. And thanks again for your service to Northeast Ohio and to this radio station. We really appreciate you.
Hey, hold up. Where are you going? You know you like your time with us. You want more. So look down, hit that button right there, subscribe, and you'll get updated episodes, and then you can hang some more.
And guess what? You can help us. How? A 5-star rating. Not 4, 3, 2, 1. No, 5.
You can also hang with us live, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. Interact with us, talk with us. Download the Moody Radio app.
Or at brianandjanelle.org.
And we don't put all this together all by ourselves. There's some great people behind all this production. We want to thank Ron Eastwood, Kelly Ryder, Paul Carter, Doug Hayner, and our awesome and fearless leader, Josue Villa.
And finally, this podcast is a production of Moody Radio in Cleveland, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.
Well, Brian, that's a wrap.
Yep.